Today we're going to be talking about one of the greatest paradoxes in running, something which takes a lot of runners a long time to figure out, but which can be a game changer when it comes to your approach to training and to translating time on your feet to time off your PBs.
Exactly, we're going to be talking all about how running slow could be the shortcut to helping you run a lot faster.
So to get to grips with running slowly, we need to work out exactly what that means.
So you might have heard it referred to as zone 2, easy running, sexy pace.
How many times have you called it sexy pace?
Me personally never, but other
only when you run with me.
Yeah, exactly. They are your easy runs, your warm-ups, your cool-downs, your longer runs where the aim is to just stack up mileage. So this type of running should feel different to those harder sessions or interval sessions. It should feel nice and easy in comparison. The emphasis of these sessions shouldn't be about pushing limits, but instead it's about sustaining a nice, controlled, easy effort.
Yeah, and a lot of runners head out on their runs, and whilst they're running slower than their target race pace, they're still running at a medium pace, a steady pace, maybe even faster than that. So they're missing out on the benefits that you get from having true variation in your runs. So that's making sure your easy runs are slow enough, and then you've got proper intensity in your faster interval sessions.
So what should running slowly feel like? Well, there are a few different metrics that we can dive into to help you translate running effort into something a bit more measurable, to give you a good gauge of whether you're running too hard or not hard enough.
First off, we've got your own perception of that effort. Now, if you're an experienced runner or if you've come to running from another endurance sport, then you'll likely be pretty familiar with how your body responds to exercise. Signs like heavier breathing, the amount that you're sweating, or how hard it is to hold a conversation are all really good gauges of the amount of effort it's requiring to put in the work.
So in simple terms, when you are running slowly, you don't want to be out of breath and you should be able to hold a conversation. That's why it's quite often referred to as conversational pace. If you can't hold a conversation, then you're either running too fast or working too hard.
Or Sarah won't let you get word in edgeways, just like now.
Correct, still me. It is a little bit of a learning curve though, but the great news is there's no technology required to gauge this effort, so it can be a great way of learning to gauge effort on your runs.
You can also measure the intensity of your effort using heart rate. Most lifestyle and sports watches are set up to measure your heart rate using BPM, which is your heart beats per minute. And the measure of your heart rate tells you how hard your cardiovascular system is working during a particular workout.
You might have seen on the running channel we have a video all about heart rate zones and how you can incorporate them into your training. Well, in short, there are 5 different heart rate zones, and each zone indicates the intensity of your workout. You should be looking to spend time in each of the 5 zones during your training week. So zone 1 is the easiest zone, and then that goes all the way up to zone 5, where you'll be working the hardest.
To work out your heart rate zones, we've recommended using something called the heart rate reserve method, where you take your resting heart rate away from your maximum heart rate to give you your usable range of heartbeats, and then you add on a percentage of that back onto your resting heart rate again. Now, you'll need your max heart rate, and a lot of sports watches can work that out for you, but if you don't have access to that and you don't want to undergo a stress test to find out what it is, then a really rough rule of thumb is to take your age away from 220 to give you that max heart rate figure. And then to calculate your resting heart rate, simply measure your pulse at rest whilst you're not exerting yourself.
So once you have your heart rate reserve, then you can start to calculate the upper and lower heart rate limits of the zones as a percentage of your heart rate reserve. We find this to be a little bit more accurate compared to calculating the zones as a percentage of your maximum heart rate, as it takes in individual variations from person to person. Make sure though that you do recalculate this every so often to take into account improvements in your running. And then when it comes to slower runs, you probably want to be working in zone 1, 2, maybe 3 at a push, but the key is to make sure that it's a low effort. So you're probably working in and around 70% of your heart rate reserve.
Using your watch or a chest strap to monitor your heart rate whilst you're exercising can be a great way to make sure you're not overworking on particular runs. And if you notice your heart rate really start to steeply increase, or you're getting to the top of the zones that you know you should be working in on those runs, then you should think about slowing down. Monitoring your heart rate during both rest and exercise can also have the added benefit of potentially helping you to identify illness early. So if your heart rate's much higher than usual during a particular workout, or your resting heart rate on waking up is too high, that could potentially be an early indicator you're getting sick.
So the last and probably simplest way to work on running slower is by paying attention to your pace. So if you have a specific goal in mind and a specific time that you want to hit, try running some of your runs in training significantly slower than your goal pace in order to unlock the benefits of running slowly.
Well, there are lots of handy calculators online that can help you work out what pace would be sensibly easy for you based on your goal and your distance. A good rule of thumb will be to running 1 to 2 minutes per mile, or 40 to 70 seconds per kilometre slower than your goal marathon pace is. And some coaches actually even recommend going slower still, maybe 2 to 3 minutes per mile slower. So if your goal marathon pace was 9 minutes per mile, then you're going to be looking at running your easy runs between 10 and 11 minutes per mile pace. But bear in mind those are rough guides and rules of thumb, and you should listen to your body to help guide you.
Yeah, it's also worth noting as well that there are some drawbacks to working to pace. So everyone is different, and on a set day, there are lots of different external factors that can affect your pace. Terrain, weather, fatigue, your energy levels, and these can all change. So if you're just trying to run the same pace over and over again, it might feel very different on a given day. Equally, if you are trying to improve your speed, then your easy pace might shift throughout the training block. So be aware of that, and that's why running to things like effort or heart rate might also be a useful gauge.
Right, now we know how we should run slowly, but why should we bother?
Well, broadly we can break it down into two categories. One, why is it good for my body? And two, why is it good for me?
The reduced speed of slower runs allows your body to gradually condition itself to the demands of running, reducing the risk of going too hard too soon.
Also, the fact that it's lower intensity means you're putting less stress on your joints, muscles, and connective tissues, which could lead to an overuse injury. It is worth bearing in mind that you can go too slow to the extent where your biomechanics can't cope with the speed that you're going. So take some time to work out and practice what slow pace means for you.
And compare that slow pace to your speedier interval or tempo sessions, where you're much likely to be running close to your limit and putting your body under extra impact, stress, and potentially risk of injury if you do run at that faster pace all the time.
Additionally, slower runs are a great opportunity for your body to train to become more efficient at using fuel, which can help prevent fatigue, which can lead to poor running form and injury.
Running at a slower pace can aid with recovery by drawing blood flow to the muscles at work.
This increased circulation can deliver essential nutrients and oxygen to your muscles and can potentially reduce inflammation from previous hard workouts. This can reduce muscle soreness and fatigue, and hopefully can speed up recovery too.
It also gives you a chance to focus on good running technique to avoid potential biomechanical issues that could lead to future injuries.
So there are a handful of ways in which running slower can help you from a mindset perspective too. Firstly, it's a lot less taxing on your body and far more accessible in terms of pace compared to a high intensity interval workout or a harder session. So this can be a great way of kind of switching to something a little bit different. Similarly, if you are training for a specific goal, then just doing the same workouts over and over and over again is probably a great way to lead yourself into a plateau. So if you did want to introduce some slower runs into your week, it gives you a bit of a different stimulus. It allows you to think about the training block as a whole, and it might lead to some great training benefits too.
Also, running slowly is a perfect opportunity to be sociable, even if you don't want to be.
Yeah, not really. Go on then.
Because when you're running at this pace, you want to make sure that you could, in theory, have a conversation. So if you're on your own, that's quite difficult. But introducing a friend or a running partner or a colleague that you're forced to spend time with can be a perfect way to make sure you have a conversation the whole time, which naturally polices your speed and your heart rate.
Yeah, you just have to make sure that Andy doesn't monologue. By incorporating slower runs into your routine, you're helping yourself recover from your last hard workout whilst preparing for the next one, and this should help improve your overall running performance. So we've talked about how slower runs can help you build endurance and improve your recovery, but how does that directly translate into speed?
Well, think of it this way, you're building a strong foundation by doing your slow runs. That's your aerobic base. And that effectively means how good your body is at using oxygen for fuel. You need oxygen in order to break down fuels like fats and carbohydrates to create the energy you need for running. Running slowly increases your aerobic base in a number of ways. Firstly, it refines your body's ability to use oxygen efficiently, prompting capillary growth in the muscles that you use for running, which gives you a greater surface area for the transfer of oxygen.
Next, slow running improves your cardiovascular system's ability to deliver high quality oxygen to the muscles that need it. So when you're doing your longer, slower runs, this is training your heart to pump a higher volume of oxygen with more force. So in turn, this delivers higher quantities of oxygen to the cells that need it.
Thirdly, slow runs give the body the opportunity to refine the process of using fats for energy. As we start to exercise at greater and greater intensities, the body starts to prioritize using carbohydrates for fuel, because to create the same amount of energy requires less oxygen to convert carbohydrates into energy compared to fats. Fats are prioritized as an energy source at lower intensity zones, those that we'd be targeting for these slow runs. And by spending more time exercising in those zones, we become more efficient at that process, ultimately shifting the point at which we start to depend on carbohydrates to greater intensities of exercise. This all comes into play when you're taking on your faster, shorter, higher intensity runs too. Increasing your aerobic base through slower running means that when you come to take on your intervals and tempo runs, you'll have a bigger engine to work with.
You'll be able to push harder and for longer because you're becoming a more efficient runner, and so you're less likely to fatigue as early on. Slow running can help you with any distance by helping you to become a more robust and resilient runner.
Right, so hopefully by now you're sold on introducing some slow runs into your running routine.
Yeah, we've shown that not only are they an enjoyable, low-risk addition to your routine, but also they can help to make you a faster runner, even over shorter distances. So how should we be adding slower runs into our routine? What should it look like, and is it possible to get it wrong?
We'll start off by looking at what you're already doing. If you're following a training plan for anything upwards of 5k really, then it's likely that it already includes an element of slow runs as a key part of the programme.
If you're not currently following a training plan and you find that the majority of your runs are at a kind of moderate to higher intensity, then try swapping some of these out in your week for a lower intensity, slower run. If you are completely new to running, then we'd recommend using a run-walk strategy to start off with, and then gradually building up the running portions of those workouts as you go on. What we would recommend as well is that you should be focusing on amount of minutes that you're doing your slow runs for rather than miles. So have the focus on the amount of time that you're doing it for. And then as you go through the weeks, start to build up this time. Using the 10% rule is a great way of doing this too, where each week you're aiming to increase your overall mileage by no more than 10%.
It's not an either-or conversation as well. You actually need to make sure you don't neglect the other aspects of your training. The slow runs are going to give you a strong base, but you need to do other types of runs too in order to maximise your fitness and ultimately to improve your speed. So make sure every run that you do has a purpose and that they're not all the same.
The distribution of your different types of training will vary massively depending on your goals, fitness levels, and most importantly, the frequency of your training. We'd recommend that a great starting point is for at least 50% of all of your runs to be at this slow, easy pace, but you will find that the more often you train and the more frequently you're running, the more runs or the more amount of time you're spending in this slow, easy pace.
It shouldn't be too difficult to find that your slow runs end up taking up to 60 to 80% of your total training time. And in fact, if you've heard of the 80-20 method, that refers to exactly this, where approximately 80% of your running will be spent doing those easy runs and the 20% will be spent at those higher intensities doing workouts.
This definitely isn't a perfect solution for everyone. In fact, if you wanted to just do 100% of your runs in zone 2 at a slower pace, then that is absolutely fine as well. But if you are looking to get a little bit faster or you want to set a super specific goal, then doing a mixture of slower paced, easy runs mixed in with higher intensity interval sessions and tempo and threshold runs is what's going to help you build strength and power and help you achieve your goal.
And finding the balance between the faster and slower sessions is ultimately going to come down to you as an individual, but hopefully from watching this video you can understand why you should be running more slowly, how you can fit that into your week's worth of training, how it's going to make you faster, and ultimately how to go about doing it at the right pace. Remember that running slowly is all about building your aerobic base that powers your runs, helps you to recover faster and hopefully avoid getting injured. And consistency is key. Build zone 2 running into your running routine, and I promise you'll reap the rewards in the coming months.
Yeah, let us know, what are you training for at the moment and how are you going to be incorporating slower runs into your routine?
And don't forget to subscribe to the running channel so you don't miss any videos from us. And now head here to watch an amazing video where all of our presenters, apart from me, because I wasn't invited.
No, I wasn't in that either.
Oh, no, neither of us are in it. Okay, brilliant. Well, it's a brilliant video where they try to achieve pacing, precision, perfection. One of those.
That's why you weren't invited.
There we go.